Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Great. Okay. I think with that, we are actually live. Wait. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Sorry, I still need to make a few adjustments here, but that... Hang on. It's not bad actually. Okay. Alright. Hello everyone, welcome back to my favorite game ever, Suzerain. Last time I tried to record this, I had some mic issues, i.e. the buzzing in the background of the first VOD. Very sorry about that, but hey, it gives me a chance to actually jump into this with a little bit more experience and a little bit more readiness to do what I had originally planned. Thank you all so much for the response on the first stream. It was incredible. I've almost hit 100 views and 10 subscribers in the matter of 2 weeks, which is mind-blowing to me. I never ever thought I would get this far, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. So thank you all so much for watching and supporting. It means the world to me. But without further ado, I want to go into this playthrough in an attempt to create a social democracy within Sordland. That's the goal of the playthrough. That's what I'm going to attempt to do. I'm doing it without a guide, and all these videos are going to turn into, this whole live stream is going to turn into its own separate videos after I am finished recording. Well, you know, piecemeal. But until then, I wanna talk a little bit about this game. So the thing that I think makes this game so special, and the thing I want to really dive into, is how well the creators of Suzerain, Torpor Games, have developed how well they've developed the ability for this game to both reflect and react to the way real-world politics does. That's what I think this game excels at. Despite being a completely fictional world, it responds to the way that politics works in real life, and that's what I think makes this game so fascinating and why I wanted to play this game so much. Because if I'm able to describe and talk about what I'm doing and talk about the effects of real life, having the game respond to that is a deeply gratifying feeling, and that's why I think both makes this game so special and makes my ability to stream it so special, because I want to be able to not only play the game, but to make an attempt, because I'm still young and I'm still learning, but make an attempt to actually show the way that this game actually reflects real-life politics and the way that these systems work in real life. So, without further ado, let's jump into this. This is from the other playthrough where I had, the mic issues. Let me very quickly delete all my old saves. Okay, yeah, actually, I think I did, so I think I just can't get this name again. Oops, alright, no matter. Actually, the space seems to do it. That works for me. Alright, let's get into this incredible game. We're keeping Torpor mode on, so whatever happens here, I'm stuck with it. There's no going back, and you can watch the live stream to make sure I'm not cheating. So, here we go. Torpor mode enabled. Start story. You are my enslavement and my freedom. You are my flesh burning like a raw summer night. You are my country. Nazim Hikmet Ran. You opened your eyes to this world. You came from a wealthy family in the city of Blackhaven. Your parents named you Anton. As the only child of a successful businessman, you had the chance to grow up in a wealthy family. Life was easy at first, and you had the best education money could afford. However, things inside the Rain family changed due to the absence of your father. This affected your mother and you negatively. The years passed. During a history class at school, the bell started to ring unexpectedly. You heard a loud commotion outside. As everyone tried to figure out what was going on, the principal announced a historic revolution. The kingdom was no more. The Republic of Sordland was born. You did not fully understand. After graduating, you passed the university exam with high marks. You had the opportunity to choose between several studies. You chose economics at Blackhaven Business School. During the first year, you attended a lecture with David Vichy. He was a well-known diplomat from the foreign ministry and the son of the president. After observing the hall in silence, he explained why a market economy is the best option for Sordland. He argued for a system where prices for goods and services are determined by the open market. You questioned what you were being taught. Soldiers entered the campus in the evening ahead of the first election. Many were in shock as the uniformed men created a security cordon and started arresting the teachers. A group of students started gathering in protest. Along with your best friend Peter Vectorn, you decided to protest with the students. One of the officers made a loud announcement that echoed through the campus. General Suzerain declared martial law in order to restore the administration. Please stand back and disperse to your rooms. You joined the students that slowly marched towards the large group of soldiers. Suddenly, the soldiers charged. A student fell and was trampled as everyone started running away. You held your ground. The soldiers beat you relentlessly. It was a gloomy year. The majority of the students and teachers displayed their opposition. Thus, Blackhaven became a target for the military regime. You didn't want to stay idle and decided to join a student council. The council was focused on increasing student involvement in the campus along with partaking in the budget. Through active participation, you gained budget management and leadership skills. One of the meetings, Peter Vectorn introduced you to a classmate of his, Monica. You were immediately attracted to her intelligence. She mentioned to you that she was a volunteer for the Source League of Women, an organization campaigning for women's rights. You told her you wholeheartedly supported her cause. The politically charged environment led you to join Red Youth, the Socialists. The radio relayed that the Communist General Ricard surrounded Ladern and his troops, demanding their surrender. They refused, and heavy fighting broke out across the country. You couldn't believe it. The army was fighting amongst themselves. Sordland plunged into chaos. Ricard's sudden attack caused more instability in the country, but compared to the fascist Ladern, he was a real socialist. This convinced you to participate in a support march. You were chanting freedom, equality, and solidarity. You were marching under the protection of Ricard's soldiers. The students supporting Ladern's coup gathered a few hundred meters in front of you. Many nationalists were among them. You knew something was going to happen. You stayed. There was a massive clash between the two sides. Soldiers began to beat the students. Tanks started rolling forward. In this chaotic moment, you saw a young girl about to get run over by a tank. You ran to save her. But you couldn't reach her in time. You never forgot her face. The clashes escalated into a full-blown civil war. The horrors made you isolate yourself for a while. Monica helped you cope, and love grew between the two of you. However, it was a difficult time for love. The chaos had to end. The charismatic colonel, Tarkin Sol, orchestrated a sudden attack on the capital, where the Ladernist and Ricardist forces were battling each other. He defeated both, ending the war. A new constitution was written, and the military government began efforts to restore stability. Many people saw the colonel as a savior. He formed the United Sordland Party and ran as a presidential candidate. In the first ever single-party elections, you voted for the United Sordland Party. USP won the election by a large majority. The military government announced a 4-year restoration period to reform to an entirely civilian government. After graduation, you kept seeing Monica. You were both interested in marrying, starting a family. However, a letter arrived from the military, calling you to fulfill your compulsory service. It was time to serve your national duty. The devastating civil war from neighboring Velen quickly turned into a proxy war between regional and world powers. The distinguished Major Josef Lancia ordered you to lead your squad on a border patrol mission. It was a very cold winter night when you began marching out of Gumrin outpost. You could see your breath. After several hours of marching through the snowy hills, distant noises were heard. Visibility was too low to confirm the source, so the squad called forward in formation and found a spot to observe. A group of refugees had made it beyond the border fence. You let them slip through. After patrol, Major Lancia arrived with anger and immediately relieved you of your command, calling you a disappointment. One of your squad members had reported your actions. After several months of scrubbing the floors as a punishment, your duties ended, and you went back to civilian life. You and Monica decided to share your lives together. After receiving the blessing of her parents, a ceremony was held in Holzard. During the same year, you worked hard to secure a high-paying job within the governing United Sordland Party. It was much more difficult to start your career on a good foot because of the refugee incident, but you still managed. It was the best opportunity to change the country for the better. You became the economics assistant to one of the more experienced members of the assembly. You worked long and hard, investigating hundreds of pages of economic reports late into the night. You were climbing the ladder. Tarkin Sol gave amnesty to the remaining factions of the Civil War and chose de-escalation and appeasement. The institutions and symbol of the former kingdom were slowly replaced. His government launched several new initiatives, such as a citizen-funded bills program to revitalize the economy, a social labor initiative to help rebuild and improve society, and a large dam project to solve the energy crisis. The first multi-party elections in the history of Sordland were held. President Tarkin Sol was elected once more. The new 5-year plan and the subsequent financial work put you under a lot of pressure, but your significant contribution to the economic strategy triggered an invitation to meet President Tarkin Sol himself, who offered you a key position. You were to become the youngest member of the assembly. You accepted right away. As the youngest MP, it was difficult to connect with the influential inner circle. You needed allies, so you brought in Peter Vectorn as your right-hand man. The birth of your son Frank provided a brief relief of moment and joy. You sacrificed work to spend time with your family. During your absence, Peter Vectorn found you trustworthy contacts and strengthened your position within the party. At the same time, President Sol increased his authority over the years. His growing ego started to cause strife within the USP. The cracks began to show. President Sol barely secured a majority in the election against the opposition leader. Over the next year, the Sorge people grew increasingly discontent with corruption and the worsening quality of life. Economic growth was slowing down. Meanwhile, calls for a United Sordland Party Congress became louder as the leadership struggle started to brew. You joined the internal opposition. You gave your support to Evald Alfonso, a reformist and talented business magnate, who was the main contender for party leadership. Meanwhile, in the desperate effort to secure votes before Congress, President Sol was meeting party members one by one, but he didn't approach you. The Congress was nothing short of impressive. The banners of the United Sordland Party were decorating every possible spot. Thousands of influential political figures, lobbyists, and benefactors gathered for this turning point. The voting for the party leadership began. You voted for Evald Alfonso. Your efforts bore fruit, as a contentious leadership vote was won by Evald Alfonso. During the Congress, Tarkin Sol announced he would retire from politics at the end of his term, and appointed Alfonso as vice president. You knew the structure he had established was to stay. The country had become increasingly authoritarian. You were happy the Sol was finally leaving. A month later, your daughter was born. Monica named her Diana. She motivated you during a tumultuous period in the party. As the VP and the leader of the USP, Evald Alfonso began dismantling the old organizations and structure established by the USP, such as the State Educated Corps and the Sorge State Corporation bills. The general elections were approaching. The United Sordland Party was now under new leadership. You joined the party effort and campaigned for him. During the general elections, the main opposition leader was embroiled in a sex scandal with his secretary. He was replaced by a more popular figure, Franz Richter, but the damage had already been done. The new economic policies and the extensive privatization program proposed by Evald Alfonso secured an election victory for the United Sordland Party. Over the following years, you did your best in order to make Sordland a better place. The presidency of Alfonso saw many bold reforms in government and law and advancements in liberal democratic values. He valued your support throughout. However, due to infighting, disorganization, continental economic tensions, and fast-track privatization, it was followed by a severe economic recession. The other parties announced their bids for the 1953 election, but the unfair election system hampered opposition efforts to campaign. You were worried about the economic recession. With Peter's help, your presence in the USP grew. The two of you worked long nights together. He flipped opponents to your side. You became the face of a new wing of the party. Step by step and with adequate planning, your wing took over the leadership as President Alfonso lost control of the country. The moment to make a move had come. You advised Alfonso to step down. I want to talk about this decision a little bit. Definitely advising Alfonso is the best decision because you don't want to cause extra internal strife and you don't want to bribe and extort his inner members. You want to basically take the risk, ask him to step down, and if you succeed, well, then you get his support instead of, trashing his reputation and trashing the people that support him. You advised Alfonso to step down. He listened to your advice. Alfonso conceded the leadership struggle, and the party eventually voted you in because of your indisputable influence. Following this, you announced that you would be running for president in the general election, with Peter as your running mate. It was your turn. After visiting every city and town during the campaign, you made a speech on state television. You promised to enact democratic reforms. The people are tired of empty promises. We need fundamental change in our institutions and government. A solid and transparent democracy awaits us. Brothers and sisters, a new constitution and a new age are upon us. The broadcast ended. On election day, millions went out to cast their votes. It was time to face the truth. Chapter 1. President Reign. Alright, let's do it. I'm going to go for my usual, that being the stylish one. The idealist. I want to take a quick look at all these again. Yeah, idealist. I like the maroon suit a lot, but let's take a few. Background. Yeah, office is good. And no accessories. Good. I like this look. Alright. Are you sure about your customization choices? Yes, I am. Okay. Here come the real decisions. As Anton reigned, you have made consequential promises to the people of Sordland to gain their votes in the 1953 election campaign. Consider these commitments carefully. After the recent market reforms and the recession, the country finds itself stuck between two different economic systems with indecision and turbulence, causing the population to demand a direction. Okay, we have the option to either support the planned economy or support a market economy. So, there are basically a planned economy would be the government takes control of critical infrastructure and critical institutions and basically guides them and basically holds them under government control, meaning they're still influenced by outside factors, but more or less they are controlled by the government. The government sets the prices, the government basically controls services. This is very good for some institutions, such as healthcare, education, natural resources, and the like, because this allows the government to keep strategic control over the resources most necessary to the prosperity of the citizens and the survival of the government. A market economy, however, allows the free market to take control, which in a lot of ways is beneficial because it allows the country to bring in investments. It allows them to expand industries with outside help, because when outside capital is able to come into the country, then those institutions that are receiving the capital are able to grow and expand a lot more quickly than if the government was maneuvering the pieces with the more limited resources it has. However, the problem with the market economy is that instead of the government being in control of everything, money pools towards the top at the wealthiest individuals, the oligarchs. So if we were to go for a market economy, the main point of it would be bringing resources into the country while still maintaining control of critical institutions. So for this reason, I want to make Sordland a more prosperous place, meaning I believe I'm going to have to bring in economic activity to the country. I want to support investment. I want to support international cooperation. So for that reason, I'm going to go with the market economy, while still keeping critical institutions such as healthcare, education, and the like in state control so that we can deliver on services that are required. And making sure the money doesn't get, promoting anti-corruption efforts to make sure the money doesn't get pooled at the top, but is actually spread out across the country. So for those reasons, we're going to promote the market economy. The global rivalries between capitalist Arcadia in the west, the monarchy of Rumburg to the north, and the communist United Contana in the east are intensifying. Sordland has the potential to align with others, or lean towards neutrality. So, since we're going for a market economy, theoretically, going west would make sense. If we have a market economy, then we can expand our influence that way. Aligning east, of course, is pretty straightforward. If you have a planned economy, your economic decisions should be more favorable towards the east. However, we're going to remain neutral. Remaining neutral is definitely the high-risk, high-reward strategy. By remaining neutral, we don't align ourselves with any country, meaning that we have the ability to play them off of each other, instead of being tied and going full in to get the support of one sector, one block, we can play them off each other, hopefully to our economic and diplomatic advantage. So this is risky, because you support one of them too much, the people get angry at you for, leaning too much one way, and the other group gets, gets offended with you. But if you're able to maintain this balance, you're able to be in a lot stronger position while maintaining your independence. So it's a big risk, but I'm going to remain neutral. Finally, immigration policy. In the last 5 years, British, Vezhek, and Agnolian immigrants flocked to Sordland due to relaxed immigration laws enacted by former President Alfonso. As a result, these tensions are causing requests for a political solution. We're retaining relaxed immigration laws. This is actually a very simple decision. Unless we were going for a fascist nationalist path, there is no reason to have an immigration laws. Well, I mean, aside from a few niche diplomatic advantages, but really, relaxed immigration is just across the board the best thing you can possibly do. Aside from the obvious moral reasons of we all live on one planet, immigration should be allowed. We should be allowed to live wherever we see fit. We should be allowed to be in communities that accept us. Retaining relaxed immigration is great for the economy. It boosts our production. It makes us more favorable to different areas, different regions, different walks of life, which makes us a more culturally important region in the world. And toughening immigration laws, it makes fascists happy. Yeah, there's no contest here. Retaining relaxed immigration is simply the best decision. No contest, especially no contest when we're going for a market economy. So retaining relaxed immigration, morally good, economically sound, diplomatically the best option. We're doing this. Finally, term focus. Education. The once praised public education system of the nation has suffered significant setbacks in the last decade. The lack of new schools, high student-to-teacher ratios, and low teacher salaries, even a lack of classroom equipment in certain parts of the country, caused massive divergencies in the public education system. The Swedish Armed Forces were the nation's most funded branch until the Alfonso government reduced the defense budget significantly. With the increase of saber-rattling threats looming in the north from Rumburg and a growing presence of superpowers in the region, a critical deterrence of the SAF matters more than ever. The recently culminating political tension between the different youth groups and socioeconomic pressures between multiple classes of society is increasing. The issue of the law and enforcement systems. Police need help keeping up with increased crime rates. Simultaneously, judges and courts deal with an enormous growing backlog of legal cases. Health. Sordland's health system and healthcare quality have stagnated due to the administrative inefficiencies, increased service demands, and an increased divide in service quality between urban and rural hospitals. The average life expectancy has dropped significantly, with issues such as maternity death and disease outbreaks. So, this is a very difficult decision, because on the one hand, these are all very critical industries that really do need the funding, especially with remaining neutral. We can't rely on another country for defense. Not necessarily. Theoretically, we can diplomatically maneuver ourselves into a better position here, but defense is not on our long-term strategy here. Law and enforcement could be very good for, fighting like the law part specifically by helping the judges' backlogs. Health, obviously, if you have a healthy population that are able to get the medication and, resources they need to keep a healthy life, then that's massively influential and massively a very, very strong thing to do, and decreases the burden on the individual citizens, allow them to contribute more to the economy. However, I think I want to focus on education here. The reason I want to focus on education is that the more we're able to educate people, the higher skilled members of the economy can do more. If we educate people, that allows them to get into more high-skilled jobs, it allows them to get into more experienced universities, it increases both the economic impact and the cultural progression and progressive progression of the country as a whole. If we're able to educate people, that leads to more things like, feminist values, it leads to more democratic ideals, it leads to a reduction in the amount of nationalism and xenophobia. So education, for those reasons, I think to both boost the economy, push forward democratic values, and generally speaking, maintaining the ability to expand out further and just boost everything as a whole, I think education is the best option to go for here. However, health is a very good second option. Health is an excellent option. Law and enforcement is also a good option, depending on how that money is spent, because just funding more police won't get you anywhere. But actually reforming the law system, that actually has a massive impact. So, for the reasons I mentioned just before, Education, I think, is going to be the way forward. I think this will bolster the economy. I think this will improve democratic values, and I think this is the best thing we can focus on for the long term. So, education. Are you sure about your decisions? Yes, I am. 2 weeks have passed since we won the election, and now I was about to be sworn in as the 4th president of Sordland. Thousands were watching the inauguration ceremony and cheering my name, Anton Rain. The die was cast, and my story began. In the distance of the Maroon Palace stood on top of the famous Hill of Pride. I had no way of knowing what future awaited me there. I looked at my family. My son and daughter, Frank and Diana, were next to Monica, my wife. Her eyes were glimmering with pride. When I turned towards the key people who made it all possible, of course, each individual was promised an important position in my government. I saw my previous rival and former president, Evo Alfonso, gave me a slight nod. Tarkin Sol was also invited, but as expected, he didn't leave his island retreat. As my thoughts slowly faded away, the reality of the situation dawned on me. Orso Hawker, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was waiting for me. The time for the oath has come. I am ready. Please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will respectfully execute the office of the President of Sordland, and to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the Republic of Sordland. You may now deliver your inauguration speech, Mr. President. It is an honor. Dear citizens of Sordland, for many generations, this country and its long history have kept us tied to an idea, the idea of unity, and our people's right for a free and prosperous life. If we stand together, we prevail. In the past, there have been times of struggle, times of survival, times of conflict and economic hardship too, but whenever we stood together, we prevailed. I promise you, we will stop the recession and eliminate poverty. Change now, not in the next decade or years, today. Hundreds of thousands cheered. They were shouting my name in unison. I felt the responsibility, the power, and the burden, all at the same time. Raise fist. I raised my fist in the air, which triggered a huge burst of applause. I took a long look at the people of Sordland to burn this moment into my memory. One of the presidential guards came by to notify me that it was time to leave. I made my way to the leading car in the motorcade. The presidential state car was a jet black Cadillo with flags of Sordland above the headlights. Next to it, a man was inside, holding the door. Hello, Mr. President. I still felt euphoric from the aftermath of my speech. Hearing the new title made me smile even more. If you'll allow me to introduce myself, I am Serge, your new driver. Nice to meet you, Serge. It is an honor. He respectfully bowed his head before opening the car door and gesturing inside. I entered the car. We will be heading towards the palace. The motorcade began to move. On the way, Serge proceeded to explain his duties as a driver. As minutes passed by, I found myself lost in thought again, barely paying attention to what he was saying. He suddenly gestured out the window. Isn't it a beauty? The Maroon Palace. He was right. Sunlight glinted off the palace's many maroon-colored domes. It was so bright that I had to look away. Every time I look at it, I am reminded of my duty to this nation. So do I, Serge. It is the beating heart of the nation, after all. Well said, Mr. President. The car drove past the majestic gates, continued uphill to the entrance, and stopped in front of the doors. Serge got out of the car and opened the door for me. Have a great day, Mr. President. I'm Morgna Wes Core. He referred to the famous Source phrase from the times of the Revolution, at Morgna Wes Core, Vector insista, which meant morning will come, victory is close. Vector insista. I made my way upstairs through the extravagant corridors of the palace. Marble and engraved wooden finishes decorated the interior. My footsteps echoed in the colossal halls. The guards bowed their heads in respect as I opened the massive doors to my new office. Alright. It's begun. I'm going to take 1 second. Okay. Oops, I apparently have misspelled democracy in my description. Give me one moment. Wait. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so I misspelled democracy in the description. Whoops. Oh well, good thing for the videos, I can cut this out, and no one's watching currently, so I get away with that. Uh, sorry, one more second. Okay. Yeah, okay. Everything still seems to be working. All right. Okay. Let's get into this. Campaign bill. Fair representation in the assembly. So, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I just want to give a brief update. So, the news outlets basically react to what you're doing, which makes sense. How they react to you, however, depends entirely on their ideology. For example, The Economist, if you go for more of a market reform and more private enterprise, they'll back you more. The Radical, if you push more left-wing policies, they'll back you. Holzard Post is the opposite. If you push more right-wing policies, they'll back you. Sordland today is the wild card, but we'll get to that a bit later. So, Arvory, lack of investment, logistical issues outside of Holzard, the general staff gathers. Port of Blackhaven loses importance, low production, congratulations from the leaders of the world. ATO advocates for global human rights amid tensions. All right. Let's go with a briefing on the current political situation. Peter Vectorn arrived a couple minutes early and sat across from me. He was struggling to hold back his smile. We did it, Anton. We won. Finally. All those years with our noses to the grindstone paid off. Peter's eyes sparkled. The strain of the past months had put a damper on his usual rakish charm, but today he was looking and acting more like his old self. He loosened his tie and undid the top 2 buttons of his shirt. Enjoying the new secretary I picked out for you? I thought you'd appreciate her gorgeous set of talents. It's a shame the rest of your staff aren't as easy on the eyes. He gestured to the slight paunch that protruded over his waistband. But hey, back in university, did you ever imagine we would be sitting here in the Maroon Palace? We'll have to celebrate this great victory. Let's celebrate then. I got my hands on something special for us. An early maroon 30-year-old. I opened the expensive bottle of whiskey and poured it into 2 glasses I prepared. The exquisite smell filled the room immediately. The 1924, that was my freshman year. Also the year after the revolution. Very good, difficult times, to be honest, but this smells like heaven. The future awaits, Peter. Toast. I raised my glass and toasted with Peter before smelling the whiskey and taking a sip. The sweet vanilla tone combined with an oaky taste developed into a lingering smokiness. Peter seemed to be really enjoying himself. What a taste. This is how we start all meetings, Anton. We wouldn't get much done. Remember the last administration? Yeah, but we're different. All they did was enjoy the privilege. We can't make the same mistakes again. We learned from it all. I sure do hope so. The door swung open and Lucien Galad, my chief strategist, walked in. He was a compact man with sharp bird-like features. After briefly surveying the room from wall to wall, he sat down, poured a glass of water, and opened his briefcase in a series of quick, graceful movements. Gentlemen. The tall case clocks in the room struck 3 o'clock. Damn, you were exactly on time. Hello, Peter. Lucian then turned towards me. He very slightly bowed his head. Glad to see you, Lucian. It is a privilege to be here, sir. Lucian spoke in soft, clipped tones and immediately drew your attention towards what he had to say. Peter and I waited for him to proceed. Let's start by evaluating our current situation. The majority of the Surge people demand change. They are more concerned about the economy than the Constitution, but they blame the system for their problems. People are losing trust in our democracy. Why do you think radicals like Bernard Circus are becoming more popular? Everyone's expecting us to bring the change the last government did not. Franz Richter, leader of the Reformists, believes that the true change can only be accomplished by transferring some of our powers to the Assembly. I'll move into the details of their demands shortly. We need to listen to the people if we want to serve the country. That's exactly what we campaign for, a true change that will move the country forward. We will need many allies against the old guard in the government. Mr. Richter managed to persuade many members of the Assembly to give their support to drafting a new constitution. Reformist politicians are quickly increasing in number. While the reformist wing inside our party is still a minority, they could have a tripartisan majority in the Assembly, especially if they decide to unite under Franz Richter. Mr. Richter could be a potential ally in our goal to maintain a majority in the Assembly. He's definitely key in this. The reformist demands are clear. They want to limit the president's veto powers, ensure that the Supreme Court is independent, and take away the court's right to vote on constitutional amendments. I support the reformists. We need a proper balance of power in this country. I agree. We can't ignore the winds of change, after all. The old guard will do its best to preserve the Constitution. Chief Justice Hawker and his allied judges have a great influence over the Supreme Court, which will be tough to break. The court also has the final say over constitutional legislation. Without their approval, we can't even change it. We'll need a more comprehensive bill to balance the power structure more fairly. I agree. The old guard won't like this, though. Comprehensive reform would make the reformists happy would mean maintaining a balance between all branches of government, which means removing your absolute veto as well. The reformists demand that all loopholes in the Constitution are closed. Looks like we have many challenges ahead. We can figure it out. Our party still holds 130 out of 250 seats in the Assembly. We've got the power. However, to reform the Constitution, we must receive a 2/3 majority in the Grand National Assembly, which is 166 votes, and a simple majority in the Supreme Court. That equates to 6 votes. After we have settled on how to proceed, we'll need to talk to our party figures. Our first goal will be to get the 150 signatures we need to start the process. Following the green light from the USP, we'll reach out to the other party leaders to see if they would back our draft. The last step would be to convince the justices of the court. The entire process will take a long time, but we must start working with the Reform Committee to evaluate all possibilities for a new constitution as soon as possible. We will write a more democratic constitution with the reformists. That's what we've been preparing for internally. Don't forget the promise is what got us elected. The key thing here will be strengthening the power of the Assembly, which we already lead with a majority. Peter nodded in agreement. Yes, the divisions of power need to be rebalanced for a better Sordland. According to the initial draft we made with the reformists, there are 2 changes of the Constitution that are not open to discussion. First, the Supreme Court will no longer vote on constitutional amendments. Second, the president's absolute veto will be taken away. This can be replaced with the limited veto system by fixing the current loopholes. I have no problem with these clauses. Let's work with the reformists. Yes, sir. We will form a reform committee together with all parties and start reaching out to all the stakeholders in the Assembly and the court for a new constitution. By later in the year, we should have an idea of the reform contents and what the other parties want. Lucian took notes. Another important note. We must be aware of the Lotharberg Group. The oligarchs convene under this organization to influence economic policies. Conrad led it for a long time before falling ill. The new leader is Mr. Walter Tusk. According to reports, some members of the National Business Council are in their pockets. Tusk and the group will surely try to bribe us in exchange for special economic protections. I will enter a dialogue with them eventually. We need to be diplomatic. Now, wise approach. It's good to understand and see if we can reach a middle ground. Lucian looked at Peter. As far as I know, Marcel Garanti has some strong ties to the group. His influence could definitely be an asset to us, but I'm sure he'll want something in return. I'm aware of Mr. Garanti's network. That could come in handy. We just need to be careful with him. He looks like the lesser evil, but it could very quickly turn out to be the other way around. We need to tread carefully on all sides with all power players to survive our term. I need to underline the seriousness of the situation. The military and the general staff are a powerful element in the state, and as history tells us, a dangerous one too. We do have some room to make structural changes, by reducing their budget, for example, but it is quite limited. I want to receive the advice of the military before making up my mind. It is sound to listen to them, but they have a very biased and narrow opinion. Nationalism clouds their minds. General Kruger is a specter of the past. Defense Minister Josef Lancia is more loyal to us compared to General Kruger, a fact that obviously can change with our actions. Either way, I see a potential rift between the two since they are clearly of different minds. If we act strongly against the military, both of those guys will unite against us. I agree with Lucian. We need to tread carefully here. Lucian looked at his watch. Well then, gentlemen, precisely 30 minutes. This concludes our political briefing for today. Our next meeting will be about the media strategy. Talk to you soon, sir. I will keep in touch. See you both at the next meeting. Lucian and Peter bid their farewells and left. A mysterious amount of smoke was rising far away on the horizon. Okay. I need to check something. Sorry, I'm having a problem with YouTube streaming here. It seems to still be working, but... Sorry, everybody. 1 second. Second. Ah, here we go. Here we go. Okay, I think I fixed it. Wait. There we go, I fixed it. Okay, cool. Wonderful, okay. Sorry about that. My streaming setup wasn't actually working, but it was still streaming, so... Anyway, nonsense aside, everything seems to be working. Yeah, everything seems to be working. Great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Let's see. Narbel. Gas field discovery. Source Grid Corporation's field research team has announced a new gas field discoveries in Narbel. The economic implications of these findings, particularly regarding potential growth and job creation in the region, are noteworthy. Nature Preservation March. GNA prepares Tourism Act. Increasing homelessness. That's unfortunate. Police report on the HSU fire. Public opinion report. People's views on the need for democratic reform in the government structure has changed over the last decade. Reformist propaganda from the leader of the People's Freedom and Justice Party, Franz Richter, have resulted in a massive increase in the demands for democratic reforms. It is estimated that currently 55% of the population supports the reformist ideas. Noted. That's very notable. And reform committees active. Fire strikes Halsard State University. All right. Briefing on the current economic situation. Simon Hole, Gus Manger, and Lilias Graff were about to arrive in the White Room for our scheduled economy meeting. This was the room in the Maroon Palace where all important meetings were held. Two assistants arrived first, carrying a heavy projector. They stood with it by the door, waiting for the ministers to enter. In the hallway, I heard Lilias Graff's voice. She was using the patient, almost motherly tone she often took in heated arguments. Gus, do you really think that such an economically advanced area is in more need of investment than Agland? Lilias, my interior minister, strode in. She was clad in shades of brown and beige, the only spot of color on a bright yellow Desnurus cross on her necklace. Gus followed close behind. Don't be an idiot, Lilias. What about the unemployment crisis in Greater Holzor and Gelsland regions are going through? These areas are our economic heartland. Gus curled his hands into fists. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development's temper hadn't changed much since his days in the Alfonso administration, but neither had his reputation for getting things done. His far-reaching network of connections was unlike any other. Simon Hole quickly stepped between the two ministers without looking at either of them. He cleared his throat. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. How are you? I am very well motivated, Mr. Rain. It seems our ministers are feeling the same. Just as expected. How's it going, Gus and Lilias? It's looking good, sir, although there seems to be a lot of work that requires attention, especially about lifting people out of poverty. Certainly a challenge. I'm feeling fairly confident about the current state of affairs. We've already begun restructuring local governments and introducing new safety measures. Off to a good start. Good. If there's anything you need help with, reach out to me. Of course, Mr. President. Good to know. Thank you, Mr. President. Now I'd like to show you the latest economic situation. Simon pulled a silk handkerchief out of his pocket and briefly wiped his glasses. My staff and I have comprehensively analyzed every aspect of... He was interrupted by a groan from one of the assistants by the door, both of whom were now visibly struggling to hold up the projector. Oh, you can put that there. Leave now. I mean, thank you, and please leave now. The assistants left the cabinet room. I was reminded that Simon never quite had a way with people, but his facility with numbers made him the most sought-after economic specialist in Sordland. Simon started looking for his slides. He always carried documentation around with him. Wait. Simon, what happened to the new police station construction in Estord? It got stalled due to a government property boundary issue. I've been meaning to look at it. I can take a look at that one. Estord needs all the security help it can get. Sure, more time for me to spend on analyses. His eyes glittered when he finally found the slides he was looking for. There have been some developments about the Sordland losing further value today. We've been trying to stabilize it with the central bank. The recession of 51 put enormous pressure on the economy, resulting in the collapse of the value of our currency. The entire situation was a significant cause of concern for our administration. Since economics is your forte, Mr. Rain, it is possible that you might already be aware of the data. I can still explain the current situation in better detail. What is our GDP and debt situation? Our current GDP is 310 billion Sordland, and the national debt is 427 billion. It's still hard to fathom that we lost 150 billion in wealth. The past 3 years were tough. What's the status of the recession? The economy has been in a recession about -6% for the past year. The average GDP has dropped from Sordland 15,454 per capita to about Sordland 10,359 from 1951 to now. The administration's success depends on our ability to stop the recession. The sooner we can reach GDP growth, the better. What's our unemployment and inflation rate? Unemployment has skyrocketed, is now at a staggering 16%. Wow. That means almost a fifth of the country is unemployed. That's terrible. The inflation rate is a relative high of 10%. Unemployment is increasing crime and drug use. We need to get people off the streets. The inflation isn't helping the average citizen either. I have all the information needed. Let's move on to the economic strategy. Simon scattered the paper stack in front of him in an orderly manner, took a final look at his notes before clearing his throat. As you can see, the situation is alarming, but not everything is negative. The extensive privatization program of Alfonso and key foreign direct investments left us a large budget surplus, which we can use to stabilize the crisis. The primary subject we need to settle on is what general path we will take in our term. Solonomics-based nationalization happened in the 30s, and Alfonso's privatization began during the end of the 40s. What will our administration focus on? One of our main promises was to promote a free market economy to stop the recession. To be frank, I believe it is the only way out of the recession. I still do not support it. Why promote the private sector when we have a qualified state-owned enterprises? Because the lack of competition has made them inefficient. Simon nodded. What are the consequences of the free market strategy? There are not many, but one could say that we are much more likely to be influenced by the world economy. It is important to think about this subject because the upswings of the world economy will reflect good on ours too. Yes, and when the global economy crashes, we go down with it. The structural problems of Solonomics were going to lead to a recession according to the predictions at the time anyway. Either way, even if we pick one of the doctrines, we retain the ability to make economic choices on a case-by-case basis. That is, however, not recommended in my point of view. The last thing we need is a chaotic economic plan. Finally, something we can both agree on, Lilias. There is another important point which has a direct impact on our economy. Superpowers. We've done well not aligning ourselves with any one of them. Economically speaking, an isolationist policy could overall only work if we were able to reap the benefits of both spheres and the rivalry. This is a very dangerous to attempt, but still possible. As I was saying before, high risk, high reward strategy, playing the superpowers off of each other. We must be very cautious. There are schemes being devised about Sordland. We cannot give in to their wants now, nor in the future. Otherwise, our country will turn into a pawn. Sordland will not be controlled by any nations. Precisely my point. We will stand strong and show an example to the world. I hope we won't regret this. Liz had a sip of water. When the time comes, I hope you'll make the right decision, for our own good. We should attract more foreign direct investment. Mr. President, we saved the country from a full-on depression in 1952 and 1953 by signing lucrative trade deals from nations such as Riga, Lesbia, and Kinal. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Minister Vichy will be in charge of informing you on those types of foreign policy decisions. We must first decide on our internal economic plan. Simon put forward a legal document outlining the possibilities with both economic doctrines listed. The cabinet members looked at me. What's on our long-term economic schedule? Picking a construction company, trade relations, tax reform, and privatization initiatives would be some of them. Sticking to a solid planned economy strategy will be the right call. The 5 years plan were fruitful in the past. Would a free market bring us stronger allies? It would make Arcadia look at our country in a more positive light. They are proponents of the free market economy. The influence of Arcadia has on the world economy is extensive. Our economic strategy should be based on internal reasoning, though. I don't fully agree with either of these statements, but I think I agree a bit more with the second statement. Let's finish what Alfonso started with the capital's free market reforms. His past was going to enrich Sordland. We do need to bring more economic investments in, so the free market is necessary for that. The recession was a direct result of the free market reforms. That I actually agree with. I think that's true. Because if you privatize everything very, very quickly, I think that causes a lot of turbulence, and I don't think the way he did it was correct. I hope to do better, but we'll see. History must note that the reason for the recession was because of Alfonso was betrayed by his party. That's not true. There was plenty of time for him to do it. If you can't make change happen in 2 years, then you are at fault. 2 years? Come on, that's not enough time to stabilize an economy. That's ridiculous. Let's move on to the conclusion. What are your final thoughts, Mr. President? Okay. Critical institutions must remain in state control. We must be fully responsible in delivering services. Few could, and it wouldn't be negative, but either way, you make the choices. So what will our general economic plan promote? Promote a free market economy, as we promised. I can't say that I agree with this. Lilith looked displeased. Not that there is clarity on which direction we are heading, I'll work on a good plan accordingly. This concludes our meeting. At our next gathering, we'll talk about the upcoming infrastructure investment plan. Now that the economics direction was taken, the ministers dispersed for lunch at the Maroon Palace. Alright. Promote market economy. Increasing unemployment. Infrastructure report. Reduction in rail assets. Recent collapse of the tourism industry in Lenkirk. Promising agricultural growth. Good news. That's nice. The Ministry of Agriculture reports that the region's agricultural industry has the potential to become a powerhouse in the future if investments persist. Interesting. We'll keep that in mind. Region congratulates election victory. CSP and Federation of Anraka sign historic non-aggression pact. Wait. Is that? Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, non-aggression pact. Yeah. Like having big sea rate maintenance, booming wine industry in Boren. Okay. Tourism, a beacon of hope for Sordland. I think I agree with that. Unfazed by recent political developments, Gazprom is set to bolster Sordland's infrastructure and support its ongoing development efforts. As one of Sordland's largest corporations, Gazprom's financial aid, logistical support, and equipment aid are crucial to Sordland's economic resurgence. The support provided by the corporation, whose roots are intertwined with, exemplifies the corporation's dedication to Sordland's prosperity. Ah, this advertisement is sponsored by the Alfonso Foundation. Who owns the company? Got it. Got it. Okay, meeting on the media strategy. Lucian and Peter arrived at my office to talk about recent developments and the media strategy. They both took their seats across from me. Lucian put on his reading glasses and quickly went over some documents. Peter turned to Lucian and nodded. Greetings, gentlemen. I have just received further information from the interior about the sudden fire that broke out at the Holzard State University archives nearby. Tell me more. The initial reports from the Holzard police chief indicate a potential arson case. In accordance with protocol, the Source Intelligence Directorate has been called. Is the SID really necessary for this? Why would anyone hit the archives of a university in the first place? I see no logical motive there. It seems like the chief suspects foreign sabotage. They informed us that a large section of the archive has been destroyed. It includes tens of thousands of globally recognized research documents and original by the great thinkers of our people. We need to support our education system to make new discoveries in the future. Preserving our knowledge is as important as expanding on it. It's interesting that the employee records have been destroyed as well. Luckily, most originals have copies in other universities and some international libraries. The first edition of my favorite book, The Geopolitics of Sordland by Hermann Ecker, was destroyed too. Maybe it was just a freak accident. We do have the copies of the most important works, so no single fire can eradicate our knowledge. I see no point in destroying employee records either. More importantly, Lucian mentioned that Marcel Caronti contacted him. The Carontis had always been one of the richest and most influential families in Sordland. Marcel Caronti was no exception. He was the oldest son of Conrad Caronti, the industrialist and media mogul who founded HOS, the richest man in the entirety of Sordland. Lucian turned to me. He has offered to meet with you, Mr. President. Why should I meet with him? After the passing of his father, may he rest in peace, Marcel aims to become the next CEO of the HOS conglomerate. He mentioned a productive collaboration. They are a powerful and influential media conglomerate. To start with, they own Sordland State Newspaper, the Source Broadcasting Corporation, which means it would be wise to have them by our side. Sorry for interrupting. What does this productive collaboration entail? He did not wish to explain the details over the phone, but rather in person. I believe I will be receiving a call from him sometime soon. However, as Peter said, they have substantial power over the content of media outlets, headlines, radio shows. That is what he would be offering. What he wants in return is what we need to understand. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, we need to determine our general approach to the media. I'm no media expert, but Lucian made some very interesting arguments at the preparation meeting yesterday. There are two ways we can approach the media. One of them is by influencing it, which has clear advantages. The other one is keeping it independent. As valuable as, using the media to help bolster our agenda, which I hope is, our agenda being a good thing, I fundamentally agree that the media must be independent. Ideally, yes, but an unpopular leader will not be able to pass even the easiest reforms. It is of the utmost importance to maintain public popularity to avoid any damaging scandals or mistakes. I must stress one thing, Mr. President. The more people we have supporting our agenda, the more we can accomplish. With someone on our side in an influential media organization, we can do this very easily. I see what you were getting at. I agree with Lucian, but why the assumption there will be scandals and mistakes? We can always hope for the best, but do we really think that nothing can go wrong? Especially considering the very recent history of Sordland. 2 knocks were heard at the door. Who is it? It's Livia, Mr. President. Livia Suno, my new secretary, entered the office. Her dark curls bounced as she crossed the room to my desk. She spoke with a slight lilt in her voice. Excuse me, Mr. President. Mr. Galad's secretary has been calling me and wanted me to relay a message. Marcel Caranti, the new CEO for HOS Conglomerate, is on the line for Mr. Galad. Well, the ball's in our court now. Would you like to talk to him, sir, or would you like me to? You go ahead. Connect the line to my office. Right away, sir. Connecting the call to line 1. Livia left the room and the phone started ringing. Lucian picked it up. A few minutes passed as the two talked over the phone. Good news indeed. Congratulations, Mr. Caranti. Thank you for contacting me about this. We will talk later. Lucian put the phone down. What was so important that I couldn't wait? He was just elected CEO by the board of directors. He offered a partnership deal regarding his media branch. He's inviting us to his new resort near Conrad for a meeting. The board has decided rather quickly. It seems I gave him the confidence to approach us again. He's going to offer a real deal, and now has the power of the conglomerate too. The choice is up to you, Mr. President. I can set up the meeting soon. I'd like to hear your opinion, Peter. I have to say I'm torn. If he has become the CEO, then he has enormous influence now. On the other hand, do we want to privately meet with someone we don't fully know? The meeting would help us figure him out. We could say no to whatever he offers. That's a good point. Arrange a meeting with Mr. Caranti. Let's talk to him. We'll see what he wants. I think that's a decent decision overall. I mean, I know what he wants because I've played this game a few times, but, you know, in concept. I'll set things up right away. Expect a worthwhile meeting in the next month. It's settled then. Looking forward to next month. I wonder if he has a pool. Lucian looked at his watch. It appears we're done for today. We will continue where we left off later. Thank you for your time. Good work with Marcel. Keep it up. Lucian and Peter nodded before gathering their documents and leaving my office. We were already getting the attention of key figures, potentially dangerous ones. Fluctuating energy prices. I want to take a quick look at that. Sordland is currently grappling with the fluctuating energy prices, a development causing uncertainty in the domestic market. This unpredictability may lead to significant repercussions for Sordland's economy and influence both domestic policy and international trade relations. I know that there's one area here that has a huge amount of... I think there's like a coal mining area around here. Okay, I want to take a quick look here for one thing. Regions. Lauren. Regional capital, industrious spirit of the people. But demonstrates resilience through its coal mining and factories, along with the largest forestry industry in Sordland. The employment sector is significantly dominated by the Ndam mining group. Woodland forestry, the source grid corporations, underlying the region's focus on industrial output. Interesting. So, yeah, state-owned mining corporation. So it does produce coal. That's a very interesting thing to note. Tourism potential in Ribery. Ribery, with its rich historical sites, unique culture, and natural beauty, has untapped tourism potential. Noted. Party Committee report. The Reform Committee reports that any potential change to the Constitution and the direction of the reformists will likely result in strong opposition from the NFP. This is the nationalist fascist party in Sordland. In other words, I hate them. SID joins investigation. Kairu expresses declining output. Vulcan Dam, a critical energy resource, has been experiencing a reduction in its energy output due to its age. Plans for refurbishment of the dam could be proposed in the future if necessary. That could be good. That could be very good. Okay, what do we have here? Invest in megas. Oh, campaign finance bill. Let's do this. So, electoral campaign finance bill. Section 1 of this bill stipulates a change in the methodology of public funds allocation to political parties. So, I've read this before, so I'm going to sum it up as quickly as I can. So, the point of this bill is essentially parties get funding from the government based on the amount of votes, popular votes that they get in the general election. So, for example, if one party gets 6% of the vote, then it gets 6% of the public funding. And, you know, if it gets 50%, it gets 50% of the of the funding. This bill, however, decides to change it, is attempting to change it from percentage of the vote won to amount of seats that you have in parliament. So if you have, say, 50% of the seats, you get 50% of the funding. If you have 10% of the votes, but no seats in the government, you're out of luck and you don't get any funding. So, for my opinion, basically either... here we go. Section 4 highlights an important consequence of this reallocation. Parties that do not meet the 10% election threshold will see their public funding effectively curtailed. This measure ensures the public resources are concentrated towards parties with significant representation in the assembly. That essentially means our party will get a massive, massive increase in funding. So, as much as I'd like to strengthen my own party, because they will look very favorably upon that, I think this is a fundamentally, you know, anti-democratic option. By making it based on how many seats you have instead of the amount of people who actively voted for the party, I think it's much better to just veto this bill. As much as my party will dislike the fact that I'm just vetoing the bill, I think it's better to preserve source democracy and keep the democratic will and support of the people. So, for that reason, I'm vetoing it. Next up, invest in mega infrastructure. A decision to invest in one of two planned mega infrastructure projects. The answer is simply yes, absolutely. The thing about the infrastructure project is that if you want an economy to flourish, if you want it to start thriving again, you need to spend money. You need to invest. By investing in our infrastructure, by investing in the country as a whole, we can build up in ways that otherwise we couldn't. So, fundamentally, this not only increases our ability to actually have the infrastructure, the ability to move around the country, the ability to actively use the country's resources, but also those investments pay back dividends in the future, especially big projects made by big government investments. So investing in our economy is investing in our infrastructure. These are one and the same, essentially, and they pay back dividends. This is a massive win. We're absolutely going to invest in a mega infrastructure project. All right, discussion of the potential infrastructure projects. The view towards the Morgna Sea from Loch Haven was nothing short of exquisite. The seaside state residence, fittingly named the Blue Mansion, was large, fine, and accommodating. By enjoying the luxurious mansion wasn't the reason for our visit. We gathered the economic team here to discuss the new infrastructure investment project. Half an hour had already passed since the start of the meeting. Unfortunately, I did not even have a chance to have my usual afternoon coffee. Looking at the view from the windows, I let my mind drift for a couple seconds. Simon's voice brought me back to the ongoing discussion. Mr. President, we need to focus on boosting the economy as quickly as possible. One of the fastest ways to achieve this is through infrastructure projects. Agreed. On the one hand, businessmen are complaining about the slow logistical rail network between Holzard and Loch Haven. Lewis started speaking as soon as Simon took a breath. On the other hand, citizens are criticizing the lack of proper highway connection between Loch Haven and Arbury. The narrow roads by the seaside are not only dangerous, but also difficult to traverse. We need to pick the most profitable option for economic growth. The reason I say this instead of number 3 is we can't support the citizens if we don't have a stable, prosperous economy. We need to, by whatever means, if we grow the economy, we grow the ability for citizens to, gain more, relevance. Not relevance, more like, if the economy is stronger, the buying power of each citizen is stronger, the more that we can do as a country. So, profitability is important, which is obviously connecting our two most economically powerful cities. It is not business people who are suffering now, but ordinary folk. I'm not necessarily talking about business people. What really matters is that your first economic act accomplishes something tangible. We must improve the economy of the nation and bring it out of recession. We must improve the economy of the nation and bring it out of the recession. To that point, I defined 2 important projects for your attention: the H3 Highway Project and the L1 High-Speed Railway Project. The Ministry can only support one project at a time with our current capacity and budget. Let's move on to the details of each. So which one do you want to hear about first? The H3 Highway Project. The H3 project aims to improve the abysmal state of the road network in the Agland region bordering Agnolia. The area is home to several million Agnosaurus citizens and Saurus citizens who currently feel neglected. There are no proper highway connections to and from the Agland. The mayor of Arvory, Eric Neal, has been asking for a bigger budget to develop the regional infrastructure. He told us that even trucks are having a hard time traveling through the main roads. The increased traffic is causing trouble for people commuting in and out of the region. That must be cumbersome for the citizens. It is, bless their souls. I'm happy we're thinking alike on this matter. Let's take a more detailed look at the upgrade proposal. The H3 highway route starts here in Lochhaven, and from there it leads to Langkurg. From there, it goes all the way to Arvory. As a result, the road network towards the Agnolian capital, Stalport, will improve substantially. As mayor, I saw the central government continuously neglect our country's Agnosaurus-dominated regions. Is this administration going to continue that kind of negligence? Our Agnosaurus citizens should be respected as Saurs like all of us. Yes, there should be no preference or separation among Saurus citizens, meaning we should think about what's best for the country overall. I think he has a point. I think his motives are a bit different from mine, but I do believe he has a point. It has to be pointed out that the highway would be less beneficial in the short term. I have to disagree. It'll increase the speed of transportation throughout the region. Our citizens will be quite pleased if we successfully accomplish this. Besides, if we enter trade talks with Agnolia, they will see the investment as a positive sign. Very interesting, but I still want to hear about the railway project. Your predecessor Alfonso failed to deliver on this campaign project, but now we have the opportunity to start the construction of a groundbreaking railway project. As you know, our current trains cannot meet the standards of today. As many other countries adopt new electric engine technology to power up their trains, we're falling behind. News about the new electric trains in United Contana has piqued our business interests. They too want to transport resources and material from Holzor to Lochhaven with great speed and efficiency. The major cities of Sordland need more infrastructure to support their growing populations. This should be our priority: growth and development optimization. Our plan is to upgrade the old L1 line from Holzor to Lochhaven. It will transform into a high-speed railway. Gus was pointing at Holzord while Simon was looking attentively. The planned construction starts right here at the capital. From there, it'll go to Anrica first, and then connect to Gelsord, after which it will reach Lochhaven, our economic powerhouse. He leaned forward. The L1 will significantly boost the economies of the newly linked cities and even the rural areas in between. Lochhaven is our primary port, so the goods unloaded there will be transported to Holzord much faster. Yes, we should link these rural areas in the middle with the major cities of Sordland. We are talking about the wealthiest regions and forgetting about Agland, which needs the investment far more. The mayor of Anrica, Curtin Lest, also requested this project to be prioritized. Businessmen in the region will be very content, which in turn will increase investments and employment. Therefore, I will recommend the L1 high-speed rail project. I have settled on a decision. Excellent. What will your final choice be, Mr. President? So, I'm deciding on the L1 high-speed railway project. So, let's first go over why I'm not choosing the H3 highway. The reason I'm not choosing the highway is simply because the region of Agland definitely deserves the investment, and those citizens are definitely neglected up there. It could also create a route for trade with Agnolia, which could boost our economy significantly. All these are very good things. However, paying for the highway, investing in that, as opposed to the L1 high-speed railway project, the L1 high-speed railway project impacts significantly more people, that being the people in the, huge cities of which, we need to focus on to both get ourselves out of the recession and also improve the quality of life over there. Second of all, the L1 high-speed railway allows us to actually improve our infrastructure as a whole. Building a new highway, while important and while valuable, doesn't push us forward. By actively investing into a new project, the high-speed railway project, that boosts our electronics industry, that will boost our ability to connect up the different cities, that will boost businesses, and it'll, as I said earlier, support the growing populations of the largest cities in the country. Whereas the H3 highway, well, it'll link up a few cities, but not very large cities. Will help significantly more people and significantly boost the ability of the country as a whole if we invest in the L1 high-speed railway project. Also, the ability to do that allows us to invest more in electronics later on, because if we've already put an upfront investment into high-speed rail, that allows us to invest more later on. It's also worth noting, trains are significantly more efficient than cars. Significantly. If we invest in the L1 high-speed railway project, we can move resources, people, way faster, way more efficiently, at way, way lower cost to the government than if we have a highway that we have to consistently maintain. Cars are deeply inefficient. So by investing in the L1 high-speed railway project, we can then expand the railway network later on, because we've already proven that we can do it once. So for me, for those reasons, the L1 high-speed railway project is the superior project to the highway. So that's the reason I'm going to go with it. So I've decided on the L1 high-speed railway project to improve the connection between our most productive cities. I also want to add on, by investing in the L1 high-speed railway project, we're essentially going to be not only linking up the cities, not only linking up those rural areas, which could turn them into more economically powerful areas, we're also going to be necessarily able to control the core of economic flow within the country. The highway, the construction of the L1's railway makes our core population, our core economic development much stronger. The H3 highway, it improves a weak region, but it doesn't necessarily boost the economy that much. Or it'll help the people, certainly, but the L1 speed rail project will go way, way farther than the highway ever could. So, this is the right choice, Mr. President. The negotiations will begin in the middle of the year. You'll be able to award the contract to a corporation of your choice. The ministry estimates the construction will be completed in 2 years if every step going forward is executed successfully. Thank you all for your contributions and thoughts. Have a good day. See you soon, Mr. Rain. Have a nice day, Mr. President. Evening settled on the beautiful coastline of Blackhaven. Alright. I'm confident with that choice. High-speed railroad construction. Good. Invest in Arcadian company stocks. A personal investment opportunity has been relayed by Mr. Manager. An experienced stockbroker in Ventry City, Arcadia, is selling valuable shares of Armadine Industries, an up-and-coming electronics manufacturing company. We could invest or let the opportunity pass. Yeah, I'll invest. 2,000 shares. Like I said before, I want to improve the electronics industry. I think that'll be a good thing. I think that'll boost the entire economy as a whole. If we keep investing in similar projects, we could get those things synergized. And again, I want to invest more in railway infrastructure more than I want to invest in car infrastructure. Because like I said, railways are significantly more efficient. And better for people, frankly. It's much... Yeah, I'm harping on about how much I love trains too much, but, you know, they're much better than cars in every single way. So for that reason, I'm glad we're prioritizing this. Reception at the inaugural ball. I had just finished buttoning up my suit jacket when the doorbell rang. The Presidential Guard had arrived to pick us up for the inauguration ball. The ball was a 3 decades old tradition, breathlessly anticipated by politicians, bureaucrats, and the press. All eyes were about to be on me. I called on Monica to get the children ready. Looking in the mirror, I straightened my tie and took a deep breath. After tonight, there would be no turning back. Suddenly, Diana hugged me from behind, startling me a little bit. Monica had fixed her hair into an elaborate braid, woven through with ribbons. Papa, Mama told me it's time to go. Stroke her hair. You could be the president yourself someday, you know that. Only when I'm old like you. She giggled. It was almost time to leave. The big ball was starting in less than an hour. Now, where's my first lady? Monica came down the stairs. She was wearing a simple yet elegant beige sheath dress and short heels. Her hair had been neatly pinned into a chignon, showing off the pearl earrings I had given her for our 15th anniversary. All those years, she had stayed by my side. Now we were about to begin the most challenging chapter in our lives yet. How do you do, Mr. President? Embrace her. Monica, my love, you look as gorgeous as the day we married. Now there's the charm that got you elected. Frank trudged down the stairs. This thing itches. Frank tugged at the collar of his new tuxedo. He seemed ill at ease. I'm glad to have you with us for this big night. Sure, Dad. I'm just dying to go. Papa, are these people going to be around us from now on? She pointed at the presidential guards at the door of the house. Yes, Sordland's most important family needs extra protection. It's alright, baby. They're here to make sure nothing bad happens to you or your papa, or his family. Monica held Diana's hand. Together, flanked by the guards, we walked out the door. Halfway to the car, Frank stopped abruptly and turned towards me. Dad, do I really have to go? Couldn't I stay home instead? I'm nervous myself, Frank, but I'd feel a lot more confident with my son by my side. Frank smiled reluctantly. Well, when you put it like that, sure, let's go. Presidential guards showed us the way as red and blue lights flashed around us. Serge, my driver, ushered us into our armored limousine. The motorcade started moving towards the palace. I gazed out the window, deep in thought. Anton, what are you thinking about? I was thinking we've come a long way together, haven't we? Yes, we have. And there's still so much we will accomplish, side by side. Just remember, no matter what happens, the children and I will always be there for you. I'm going to help Papa fix everything. Frank rolled his eyes. I know you will, honey. This means a great deal for me. After what seemed like just a few minutes, the convoy slowed to a halt. Serge rolled down the limousine's soundproof partition. We are here, sir. Hope you enjoyed the drive. Much appreciated. How are you today, Serge? I'm just as good as I can be. But today is your day, sir. I'm glad you are in charge now. You know, my entire family voted for you. Thank you and your family. I'm here with all of your support. No reason to thank me, sir. You are the one who sparked a glimmer of hope in us all. Serge opened the door for me. The normally imposing palace was festooned with garnished banners that nearly made it look cheerful. A line of shiny luxury sedans stretched around it. Politicians, bureaucrats, and celebrities, the creme de la creme of Sordland's elite, streamed inside the building. Good luck out there, Mr. President. I'll see you on the trip home. I stepped out and immediately found myself surrounded by loud voices and camera flashes. Hordes of eager journalists thrusted their portable microphones my way. My guards fended most of them off, but one woman managed to dodge them and corner me. I recognized the Swedish Broadcasting Company logo on her press lanyard. Mr. President, do you plan on working together with the opposition party for the expected constitutional reforms? We are going to work with everybody. Mr. Richter clarified that as long as you hold your promises of democratization, they will support you on these issues to the end. What do you think about this statement? I welcome it. This is a challenge for us all. One more question. One of your first acts as president was to veto a campaign finance law that would have deprived small parties of public funds while increasing those channeled to your own. Are we seeing the beginning of a more egalitarian administration? Absolutely. Whether the bill is proposed by my own party or not, I would use my veto on it if it goes against the interests of our democracy. That's enough, ma'am, said one of my guards while nudging the reporter away from me. A path through the crowd was now open, and we quickly made our way to the entrance of the palace. At the same time, a dozen fireworks went off. The entrance was decorated with beautiful ribbons of Sordland's colors of white, yellow, and maroon. A lush maroon carpet had been rolled down the stairs. We entered the lobby and joined the throngs of people making their way towards the ballroom. As I navigated through the crowd, a familiar figure stepped into my path. It was Bernard Circus, the acclaimed poet and now MP. His face bore a look of subtle defiance. Congratulations, President Rain. A remarkable achievement indeed. Thank you, Mr. Circus. We've both come a long way from our red youth days, haven't we? Yes, we have, but some things never change, do they? I can't help but wonder how the winds of change will blow in our Sordland now that you've taken the helm. Perhaps now is the time for our long-nurtured dream of revolution will finally become a reality. Revolution, Mr. Circus. Let's hope it's a peaceful one for the sake of both Sordland and its new president. You mustn't forget, to ride towards the sun is to invite flame, yet only through fiery peril can true glory be found. The light of it binds us all. That is the weight of your new role. I've taken up enough of your time, President Rain. This is your night, after all. Your friends, family, and country await. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, Mr. Circus. Enjoy your evening. Until we meet again. As I watched Bernard Circus blend back into the crowd, his words echoed in my mind. Were they merely poetic expressions, or a reflection of the real socialist sentiment stirring within the country? Behind me, I heard a familiar voice. There they are, the most beautiful family in Sordland. Uncle Peter! Hi, Uncle Peter. It's great to see you. You two are going faster than I'm getting wiser. Are you sure you've gotten any wiser, Peter? Maybe not. After all, I'm sticking with you. Happy to see a familiar face, Peter. Evelyn! Peter's wife Evelyn approached us and shook hands with a firmness that belied her delicate features. Congratulations, Anton. I have to say, the results were clear to me from the beginning. Thank you. We both worked hard to make it happen. We know you did. You deserve the position. And tonight, we reap the rewards. I hope you'll show the same enthusiasm on the job. Of course I will. You know me. I work as hard as I play. He gave a short smile that looked halfway genuine. He seemed uncomfortable. Monica, how are you? You've barely said a word. I'm more than relieved to have this roller coaster ride over with, but of course, now the real work begins. Ah yes, managing the help, planning parties, daily trips to the salon to look your best for foreign dignitaries. Don't be so old-fashioned, Evelyn. I plan to use my power as First Lady to advance the position of women throughout Sordland. Equal rights for our sex are long overdue. Wouldn't you say, Anton? Absolutely, and we'll work together to achieve that. Monica flashed me a smile. Diana suddenly jumped in between us and tugged on my sleeve. Papa, can we go? I want to see the ballroom. Of course, darling. Let's not delay any longer. We left the lobby and made our way towards the ballroom. Inside, we were met yet again by a noisy crowd, but this time it was the politicians who sought to appease the new authority in Sordland. I spent the next few hours shaking hands, joining various conversations, some serious, some superficial, and making speeches. We finally settled down at the dinner table with the Vectorns, and the band started playing some slow jazz tunes. Oof, that was tiring. I have to get used to it. Well, suddenly a loud banging noise echoed from outside the ballroom, then one, then another, and another. The musicians stopped playing. Everyone in the room was looking around in confusion. Peter and I turned towards each other, realization dawning on both of our faces. Fireworks? No! Gunshots! As soon as Monica heard the word, she lunged from her seat. Shield Monica and the kids. I threw myself on Monica and Diana and Frank to shield them. Papa, what's happening? I knew it. We never should have gone. Chaos broke out as some guests flung themselves under their tables and others ran toward the doors, screaming. Diana burst into tears while Frank tried to comfort her, hiding the fear in his own eyes. Then 3 more gunshots rang out loudly. Mr. President, are you all right? Carl Greiser, the head of the Swedish police forces, were running towards us with 3 more police officers in decorated uniforms. They all had their guns drawn. As soon as he made it to us and saw that we were unharmed, he let out a big sigh of relief. Thank God. What the hell is going on? 1 second, Mr. President. He quickly turned to his men. Check the perimeter, now. Paul, Jensen, follow my lead. We'll bring them to the safe room. He now turned to Monica, Evelyn, and the children and spoke in a softer voice. Do not worry. The situation is now under control. Please, follow me. We promptly followed Carl to the winding halls of and corridors of the palace. His men still had their guns drawn, which did nothing to ease the tension. On the way, Peter made an attempt to break the silence. What a fucking night. Not now, Peter. Carl turned to us with a serious face as we were about to round a corner. Quiet, please. Sorry, I talk when I get nervous. Peter, shut up. Carl flipped the switch on the wall and a panel opened, revealing a hidden staircase leading to a large reinforced door. Inside, a set of emergency lights flickered on. The safe room was comfortable and spacious, with expensive-looking leather sofas. Small security monitors on the wall displayed grainy footage of each room in the palace. There was a boardroom and a pantry containing enough provisions to last us months. Monica and Evelyn sat the children down and started wiping their tears. Carl stepped away from us and made a few radio calls. When he was done, he returned to me and Peter. So what is the status? Carl's radio suddenly crackled to life. Every second felt like an eternity as he pressed his ear to the receiver. When it fell silent, he turned to us. Good news. We're not in any danger at the moment. The situation has been dealt with and the perimeter has been secured by the guards and the police. If I may, sir. He gestured toward a more private corner of the room and started speaking more quietly. This is what we know so far. We've confirmed that 2 people were gunned down in front of the palace. The attacker is one of them, and we have reason to believe he was working alone. He fired 3 shots at an NP, 1 to the head, 2 to the body, instantly killing him. Personal guards at the palace immediately shot back and killed the attacker. He has not been identified yet and will require an investigation. The MP that was killed was identified as Bernard Circus. This is huge, Anton. This will cause a lot of problems. A lot of problems. Peter pulled out 2 cigarettes and handed me one. He then turned to Evelyn. I could hear him trying to reassure her that everything was going to be alright. Monica was still trying to tend to Diana and Frank. Diana, as Frank paced the room, mumbling that he should have stayed at home. Covered Monica and the kids. We are safe. I'll make sure everything's going to be alright. We can't be sure of anything anymore, Anton. I lit my cigarette and took a deep drag. I was going to see this through and keep my family safe. At all costs. I crushed the cigarette on the ashtray. All right. Now with Bernard Circus dead, Mansoon Lek is now the spokesman of the independent bloc. Sorry, I've been reading for a while. I really need to. Okay. Think I'm ready to continue on. Read the report. Security increase. Security measures at the capital have been heightened after the murder of Bernard Circus. The mayor of Holzard reports that everything is under control. Police Chief Carl Greiser reported that an investigation has been launched on the murder of Bernard Circus. The mood in the Situation Room was gloomy. My cabinet members were gathered to discuss the shooting outside the palace. Lilith presented the initial report. Bernard Circus was shot dead at 9:03 p.m. in front of the palace gates. He was an elected independent member of the assembly, and as you know, a famous communist. She spat the last word out with some distaste. Guards at the scene were 50 meters away and immediately took action by responding and killing the assailant, who was identified as a member of the nationalist organization, the Young Swords. The president and his family were unharmed. Praise God. What were the motivations of such a horrid act? Our investigators are suspecting a political assassination since the Young Swords have been threatening the communists for some time. This may well create a dangerous atmosphere where the left versus right political violence of the 1920s could spark once again. A return to those days would be devastating. The coups are the reason why our country stagnated for a decade. Nia Morgna, the Minister of Justice, sighed. The Red Youth have condemned the killing, but didn't stop there. They promised revenge. This will in turn spark further aggression from the Young Swords. The whole cycle started because Bernard Circus expressed his views. We can't simply look away. Nia had always been one of the members of the Justice Ministry truly deserving of the name. She had survived countless attacks on her character while fighting corruption within the ministry, and rising to power had only compounded her sense of moral duty. Freedom of expression is part of our constitution. We can't have anyone, let alone an MP, shot for voicing different opinions. I fully agree. We should protect freedom of speech. Our laws do, and for good reason. Silencing voices only results in fear and stagnation inside society. We have had that before, and we very well how it ends. I hear your concerns. Our police will do their best to uphold the rights of our citizens. We will prevent such an act from ever happening again, by making sure our security measures are reevaluated. Minister of Defense of Joseph Lancia grunted in approval. He towered over the rest of us in full military uniform, his many war medals conspicuously on display. Agreed, ma'am. Our gendarmerie will also help boost security in rural areas where possible. There might be more violence to come. We should refrain from making the issue a political one from the start. It will only add fuel to the fire. You are right. We need to defuse the situation. Our government is capable to maintain security. Our job will be to reduce tensions. Several police cars rushed past Maroon Palace and everyone was silent. Regardless, a full investigation into all involved parties is underway. We'll find the subversives and punish them soon enough, Mr. President. I'll do my best to help coordinate the administrative tasks. Justice will be served and the rule of law will return to this country, stronger than ever. Only if we stay vigilant as a country. We must think about the upcoming budget. We should not lose sight of our real political goals, like the constitutional reforms. Agreed. These matters shouldn't distract us from what the people want us to do. Lucian took some notes after checking the latest newspapers and reports. It seems that the tensions between the communists and the nationalists will escalate further. It will be very difficult to pass any meaningful change if there's chaos in the country. We can't fix the recession if there isn't stability. You're right. We need to trust our ministers to stabilize the situation if it comes to it. That will be it for today, then. We will convene again soon. Thank you all, and keep us updated. The meeting concluded and the ministers left the room with concerned looks. It was hard to anticipate what would happen next. All right. Continue. A few days later. Oh. All right. Let's read the reports. Reports of the BFF activity in the capital. The chief of police, Karl Greiser, reports that 2 British women with affiliations to the British Freedom Front, BFF, have been caught in Holzort before they could execute a terror attack at a crowded rally. Both women are listed as wanted criminals and enemies of the state. Police reports that the situation is under control and further investigations are underway. Weapons seized in Cultural Center, police understaffed, illegal firearms found in Communist Party office, Young Swords youth wing leader dead after terror attack, Communist Party leader suspected of bomb attack. Horton critiques trade, Smollett warns traders. Sol dam at maximum capacity. Illegal K-74 seed, police overburdened in Nestord. Everything is shit, essentially. We have a lot of work. Source politician shot dead. Unity despite differences. Sure. Murder was a method of the past. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Drink a little bit more. Security briefing on the threats against Sordland. I arrived in front of the doors leading to the Situation Room. Today's security briefing was arranged in 2 parts, starting with internal matters and moving on to external matters after a short break. The Minister of Interior, Lilith Graff, and the Minister of Justice and Law, Nia Morgna, will join us for the first part, the law enforcement briefing. For the second part, the Minister of Defense, Josef Lancia, will join us with a few high-ranking officials, including the Chief of the Armed Forces, Vulcan Kruger. I opened the door. Lucian, Nia, and Lilius rose from their seats. Sir. Please, take your seats. Everyone in the room sat down except for Lucian. He pawned his glasses and went through the documents in front of him. Shortly after, he raised his head to address the attendees. Mr. President, ladies, we will kick off today's meeting with the internal security briefing. I'm assuming everyone has already been over the agenda. We all have busy schedules, so without further ado, I'll jump into our first topic. As we feared, the political atmosphere has worsened. The reports around the country indicate that tensions are rising as we feared. What is the status on the Bernard Circus investigation? I received news this morning that the investigation into the murder of Bernard Circus has concluded. Please enlighten us. The more we know, the better. After further investigation and testimonies, we have confirmed the motive and also the events leading up to the shooting. A few days prior, members of the Red Youth initiated a violent attack on a Young Swords local leader in Shen. We believe the Young Swords then called for revenge, leading to the death of Mr. Circus. Since he often spoke against the Young Swords and nationalist sentiments in the assembly, he was a big target, not to mention his radical communist views. Political violence needs to stop now. Yes, we've kept it at bay for so long, but it seems that there are now new triggers. Liz handed over the report and pointed at a highlighted section in the document. The investigation revealed a very troubling fact. The funding sources of the Red Youth have a clear link to United Contena. Are you sure? Yes, we have found the cash trail. Several Red Youth members with ties to United Contena have been detained, and the information extracted from them points to a preparation for a communist uprising in Sordland. It isn't unusual for the superpowers to influence our nations, but I think this case is a little far-fetched. The left lacks popular support in Sordland. Nia eagerly lifted her hand, my motion for her to speak. I went over the report in detail. It would be wrong to jump to conclusions about a clear foreign interference yet. United Contena has humanitarian and cultural ties with many countries, including Sordland. I also don't want to jump to conclusions immediately. We shouldn't create a crisis with them. Nearly 3 decades ago, they funded General Ricard and tried to establish a communist dictatorship in our country. If it was not for Colonel Sol, we would have seen the real crisis. She took a sip from her glass of water and continued. Our police chief, Carl Greiser, has linked the funding channel to United Contana Consulate in Benfi. As we all know, the enemies of Sordland are many, but we also have threats inside the country. Our country has always had issues. This is a part of our job. If we give up essential freedoms to purchase temporary security, we deserve neither freedoms nor security. This is debatable, but yes, we know that more security and surveillance caused to this country under President Sol. This is debatable, but yes, we know what more security and surveillance caused to this country under President Sol. Let's not forget that President Sol, God bless him, brought stability after a long period of bloodshed and chaos. But moving on. Our highest internal threat comes from the estimated 20,000-strong Bluish Freedom Front, led by imprisoned Delvin Arge. They're a banned political organization, now a militant force that is trying to incite racial violence. Are they supported by our Bluish citizens? To some extent. Luckily, they couldn't attract a wide audience of Bloods, but they could potentially attract thousands if anti-Bluish sentiment spreads in Sordland again. Lewis pointed to a page 3 in the report. Our intelligence intercepted 2 crates filled with weapons close to the Rumberg border. They were filled with military-grade Ka-74s. We expect that more have been smuggled in. A group of Bloods were caught with these guns at a checkpoint not far away. The governor of Berja, Felix Braun, is already taking the necessary measures to counter the threat. Rumberg has been acting aggressively in the region for a long time. I'm not surprised they would attempt to weaponize Bluish people against us. This is worrying. Very worrying. We need to keep level-headed with Rumberg. They are looking for reasons to take action. They will play dirty while we play nice. It is a battle we will lose. This is grave news, but we must be careful not to stoke the fires of anti-Bluish sentiment. Unfortunately, Governor Braun is directly causing the tensions to increase with his increasingly anti-Bluish stance. I must remind you, Governor Braun is directly responsible for the arrest of Delvin Arge, the previous leader of the BFF. It's true that his methods can be extreme at times, but it was his policies that kept the region peaceful over the last decade. He's misusing the powers given to him by Tarkin Sol. The insane authority of the government is surely a root cause. It would be very difficult to revoke the special status of Berja under the current circumstances, Mr. Morgna. The presidents no longer have the authority its Tarkin Sol once enjoyed. For now, yes, but with enough justification for it, it would be possible. Anyway, we'll be discussing this at a later date. Tell me more about the Special Zone. As you know, Berja was given special status by Tarkin Sol after the full-scale uprising by the BFF against the Sorsh government in 35. Those couple years were disasters for Berja. Delvin Arge and the BFF declared war on us, openly attacked our people, and occupied entire cities. It was a massive uprising, but I'd like to point out the longest time they were in control of a city was 2 weeks. I wouldn't call that an occupation. Despite the arrest of Delvin Arge in 44, and the BFF ceasing its activities, the special status of the region were never revoked. Today, the special zone of Berja gives the government insane amounts of authority. He was in trouble with the law before for not following the central government's authority. Unfortunately, Berja also has its own police forces, directly commanded by Governor Braun. They are not part of my ministry and only cooperate when they are forced to do so. This is a problem. Even though our forces have the authority to serve in Berja, the special zone leaves the security of Berja mostly in the hands of the governor. That leaves my hands tied. The discrimination Berja suffers is maddening. We should find a way to revoke the special status of Berja, one way or another. I will do my best, Mr. President. Nia gestured at Lilius. What is the second most important threat? It is the gang violence that is threatening the Nargis and Aglan regions. 2 prominent organized crime families are at war, and the potential for bloodshed is real. Which 2 crime families? One is known as the Coronelli, the other is the Skinner Cartel. They used to be allies until a recent disagreement. Both are active in the cities of Narbel and Estord. They're playing with fire. I want them gone, for good. While I agree it would make Sordland a better place, it will not be easy. These gangs exist because corruption is so common in our country. They buy our police officers and slip by checkpoints. Lewis Raff sighed deeply. I shall be honest with you. With our current capabilities, we may not be able to prevent the further arming of separatists while maintaining order in Persia, Nargis, and Agland. If the law enforcement budget isn't increased, I can't be fully responsible for what happens. Our police units are spread thin as it is. In light of this information, I might increase the law enforcement budget. We will rid our country from separatists and violent thugs if you do so. I wish you would stop using the word thugs, Elias. The real problem is corruption, which is fueling the gang violence and is very likely the reason why these weapons were smuggled in. A higher budget could help us end that. Valid points. Corruption is the root of all evil, after all. We can look into corruption once the weapons have been found and the gangs have been beaten. Just like previous administrations, kicking the can down the road. This is what's destroying our institutions. Lilith and Nia were openly scowling at each other. Lilith turned back to her notes. Well, this concludes the topics for the internal portion. Thank you for the updates, Miss Graff, Mrs. Morgna. Thank you for the overview. Have a good day. Until next time. I'm significantly more supportive of Nia in this particular instance. She's definitely got her head screwed on straight, and she doesn't seem to be the type to... She doesn't seem to be as jingoistic, I find, as Graff is. I like her a lot more. I agree with her a lot more as well. I think she could be one of my strongest allies in this. Upon invitation, Joseph Lancia, along with the 3 high-ranking officials from the Ministry of Defense, walked into the room. One of the men was none other than General Kruger, chief of the armed forces. Joseph made his way towards the table while the others stood by the door. Mr. President? Joseph, welcome. I brought General Kruger with me due to the escalations on our borders. General Kruger stepped forward and saluted. He had a strong jaw with sharp cheekbones. His tall structure, uniform and medals, combined with his deep and intense stare, made him look threatening. He was in his 70s, yet he had a bulky body that was a result of his commando training. Not only was he the second most decorated officer in Sordland, he was also the longest serving. Salute him. He smiled at the gesture and bowed his head in respect. Joseph tapped his foot impatiently. He seemed uneasy with the presence of another higher-ranking officer in the room. Gentlemen, thanks for coming to this significant gathering. Let's begin. Joseph and Vulcan took their seats at the table while the rest of the officers stood by the door. Mr. President, the situation at the western and northern borders towards the Rumburg is very intense. We are observing a deployment of divisions close to our borders. Rumburg has been acting increasingly expansionist in the past decade, and also interfered in Agnolia, but now they have turned their sights on us. What is your current strategy? Patrolling close to the borders with our border force and keeping Army Reserve divisions near. It seems like they want to increase the pressure both externally and internally. Mr. President, if I may. Please, General. The picture is becoming clearer. The latest information from the interior about the weapons caches, and now there is an active military buildup close to our borders. The entire situation was analyzed by our general staff, and our prediction is a future territorial incursion by Rumburg. I have complete trust in the general staff. We will not lay you down, Mr. President. General staff is composed of the smartest military individuals. I require an increase in the military budget to enlist more soldiers. Only then we can stand strong against our enemies. The enlarged armed forces will hold them at bay. Vulcan is right. We do need an increase in the military budget. Although we don't see eye to eye on exactly how to spend the budget. That much we agree on. I have my concerns about Rumburg too. We need strong allies to withstand such a superior power. They are our nemesis. That is an understatement. Times are changing, and war is coming, Mr. President. Whether we like it or not, we must be prepared. During the election, you said nothing about focusing on our military. I ask you to reconsider, and to increase the military budget. The future and safety of Sordland is in your hands. I am a man of my word, Joseph. That is a valuable trait, Mr. President. However, it will not help when the enemy armies are invading our cities. Our forces would crumble under a decrease, and Rumburg would be much more compelled to exploit our weaknesses. Our country hasn't fallen to any invading force for 200 years. You cannot let it happen, Mr. President. We should find regional allies like Vagsland or Lesbia to deter Rumburg. There are several options on the table. These options should be considered. They could be considered, but why pander to others when we can solve these issues ourselves? We have no true friends outside of these borders. Everyone fell silent when a soldier entered the room and let Joseph Lancia know that a call had come through from the ministry. Excuse me, Mr. President. Joseph left the room to answer. A few minutes later, he entered the room again. His expression had changed. Mr. President, there's been Rumburgian military activity close to the Narbel border. I just spoke with the local commander. Vulcan, we should go to the ministry and get further updates from our branches. Understood. Raising military readiness is the first call of action. If there's truly an extraordinary attempt, we will relay it to you immediately and wait for further orders, Mr. President. Make sure they know we are observant and ready. Always watching, always ready is our motto, sir. Hail, Sordland. Hail. They saluted and left the room. Rumberg was already testing us, and the reports from the interior indicate interference inside our border. Communists, nationalists, British rebels, Rumberg expansionism. What was next? Sordland had always been a key piece in the chessboard of the global rivalry between Arcadia and United Contena. But in the recent years, there was no such aggression from Rumberg. Not at these levels, at least. All it takes is one tiny spark to start the flames of war. The phone rang. Rumberg had decided to close their consulate in Lackhaven. Arcadia develops first ICBM. Yikes. United Contena Consulate helped protesters. Rise of Golkondism in rural areas of Bergia. Widespread protests. The city is in a state of political chaos. Protests and shows of civil disobedience are regular occurrences in the street. That's a bit worrying, but I think we can deal with this in the long term. We just need more time to stabilize the region. After a long day at the palace, I was finally home. I thanked Serge and walked through the front gates, nodding at the two guards as I went by. Even as I turned the doorknob, I could hear Diana rushing down the stairs to greet me. I opened the door, and there she was, standing in front of me with expectant eyes. Papa, you're home! There's my bright little daughter. I lifted Diana up and hugged her while trying to put the keys in the little tray next to the entrance. She was growing fast. Lifting her up was no longer as easy as it once was. How was school? Boring. I liked my old school better. I put her down and her expression turned serious. Papa, are the bad men gone? It was only one bad man, Diana. And yes, he's gone now. Okay, Papa. Diana dashed down the hallway. Mama, Papa's here. Monica appeared next to the kitchen door. She was wearing an apron and holding a spatula in her hand. Diana, what did I tell you? No running in the house. Yes, Mama. Monica approached me and kissed me on the cheek. A tantalizing smell wafted from the kitchen behind her. How was your day, dear? Terrific. I finally got to do some grocery shopping, just like old times. And I'm making your favorite. You mean? Yes, Lorsha. Lorsha was a Lackhaven specialty, usually reserved for special occasions. A rich seafood stew with a heaty garlic and paprika kick. It was absolutely my favorite dish, especially paired with kebi, a potent unfiltered wine from Bergia. Kiss her on the cheek. I kissed Monica on the cheek. I just wanted to cheer everyone up a bit. Her smile faded and she lowered her voice so that Diana wouldn't hear. Especially after what happened at the ball. I'm worried, Anton. For you, for the children, for the country. Diana suddenly appeared next to us. Mama? Yes, sweetheart? I'm hungry. We'll eat in just a minute. Will you help me set the table? Anton, can you tell Frank to come down for dinner? He's been sulking in his room all day. Monica started taking out the plates while I headed upstairs to fetch my son. Loud rock and roll music echoed down the hallway from his room. I caught a faint hint of cigarette smoke. Knock on the door. Knock on the door again. Bang on the door. The stereo in Frank's room clicked off. All right. He unlocked and opened the door. What do you want? Hand over those cigarettes and join your family for dinner. You smoke, don't you? I'm old enough to do what I want. I'm trying to quit that nasty habit. You ought to stop while you still can. Frank heaved a sigh, handed me the packet, and headed downstairs. I followed him into the living room. The table was prepared and Monica was ladling food into the plates. Come on, have a seat. It won't be tasty if it's cold. As we started eating, the room went quiet. Monica's cooking was as delicious as ever, but I had the feeling that wasn't the reason nobody spoke. Monica was the first to break the silence. Say, did you know that they refurbished the grocery store? I don't know if you remember the owner. He's been there every day for the past 30 years. Can you imagine doing the same job for so long? What if you were president for 20 years, for example? I don't want this country to suffer under another soul. Agreed. That must never happen again. Anyway, the grocer was a really nice person. He threw in some extra vegetables with my... Frank suddenly slammed his hands on the table, rattling the plates. Monica, Diana, and I stared at him. So this is how it's going to be? We're just going to sit here like nothing happened? Dad, you could have been killed. Mom could have been killed. Any one of us could have died. Diana's lower lip started trembling. Monica put her hand on Frank's shoulder. Frank, you know I would never let anything happen to you or Diana, even if it costs me my life. I know, but still. Can you at least tell me if something is being done about this? It was real close, Dad. My security assured me that they took all the necessary steps. The same security that let a person get shot in front of the palace? Frank, listen to your father. If your father says we don't need to worry, then we don't need to worry. You have to trust him. We all have to trust each other. Things calmed down a bit at the table. We finished our food in silence. Frank got up first and retreated back to his room. Monica lifted Diana up and propped her in front of the living room TV before returning to the table. She sat down across from me. Anton, he is still young. I know, but there's not much longer we can shield him from the ugliness of the world. He's scared, Anton, and frankly, he isn't the only one. I promise, if there truly is any threat to this family, you will be the first to know. She got up, stood behind me, and massaged my shoulders for a moment before leaving me alone in the dining room. I sat alone at the table and drained my glass of kibbe. Had I been lying to Frank and Diana? Was the threat to my family truly over? Time would tell. Okay. CSP faction spotlights workers' rights reports. The CSP's stance on workers' rights offers a strong counter-narrative to the ATO's capitalist orientations, emphasizing the alliance's commitment to socioeconomic equality. Morella expresses condolences for Circus. Okay, react to the unrest. The political situation around the country has escalated. Chief Strategist Lucian Galad has prepared several action plans that we can execute. What will we do to address the intensifying political climate? So, our job here is to reduce the tensions across the country. And for me, this is, from the options here, 2 of them are simply a no-go. Label the protesters as traitors and expand the police by deploying all recruits in training. And reject the plans. We're not rejecting the plans. Expanding the police by deploying all recruits in training just means we're throwing a bunch of younger, uneducated officers just onto the field. That is a recipe for disaster. If the younger officers, get involved in the protests and they're less trained, they're less equipped to deal with the issue, that'll just lead to the whole situation getting worse and escalating. Label all protesters as traitors, that's absolutely not the solution. That just increases violence both from the protesters and against the protesters, causing more chaos, causing more protests. That's a terrible decision. Calling for restraint on national television is a good thing, I think. I think it's a good decision. By calling for restraint, we encourage de-escalation of the situation, causing people to hopefully calm down a little bit, and hopefully causing people to, be a bit more cautious. If we, as the president, use our authority and our political power to de-escalate things, that is a good thing. However, I want to go for visit affected towns in person. This is the best way to do it. If we're on the ground, if we're actively dealing with the situation and meeting with people and addressing their concerns in person, face to face, that is a big deal. And I think that's the absolute best thing we can do to calm down the situation and de-escalate the protests and in return stability to the country. So for that reason, I'm visiting the affected towns in person. Okay. It was late in the evening. The Maroon Palace was finally getting somewhat quiet when I returned to my office at the top. I eagerly approached my chair and sprawled out on it. It had been an exhausting day, just like every other day since I took office. Prepared to go home. I forced myself out of the chair to gather my jacket and briefcase. I really needed to make some time for my family. I quickly glanced at the window before leaving. Serge and the guards were outside by the main gate as usual. I heard a couple of knocks on the door. My secretary, Livia Suno, entered. Mr. President, Mr. Tusk is here to see you. You had a meeting group with the Lotharbrook spokesman. I'm so sorry for not giving you proper notice. Don't worry about it. Thank you for your understanding. After a moment, Mr. Tusk swaggered into the room. I had met Sordland's most prominent businessman once or twice, but never alone. He had large jowls, blindingly shiny shoes, and the air of someone who was used to getting his way. Anything to drink, Mr. Tusk? Water, whiskey, cognac, preferably from before you were born, sweetheart. I'll check the supply room. Livia backed out of the office, shooting me an apologetic look as she did so. Walter hung up his hat, which I could see was lined with mink. He fixed me with a long, hard stare, then broke into a toothy grin. Good evening, Mr. President. I'm here to congratulate you. We both sat down. My business partners and I wish you a successful term as the leader of our nation. Thank you, Mr. Tusk. I had no chance to say this at the ball with all the panic, but we are very much looking forward to working with you. Thank you. I'd like to build a profitable relationship between us. That being said, there are some concerns of mine and the people I represent, which I would like to take this opportunity to clear up. What are these concerns? The ruined state of the economy in Sordland has influenced everyone. The recession hit all of us hard. Walter pulled out a box of cigars from his jacket. I had these brought from Lesbia, the best cigars in the whole continent. Would you like to try one? Smoked cigar. I grabbed one out of the pack. Walter lit up with his large engraved lighter. Now we are talking. A man who knows pleasure and business. Walter grabbed himself a cigar and lit it up as well. We looked out at the city scenery as we both puffed away. I heard that you purchased stock from Armadine Industries in Arcadia. Smart buy. They're developing new gadgets that are going to be profitable. With risk comes reward. I expect a very good return on investment. You have a keen eye for business. I'll buy a couple thousand shares of two and expand my portfolio. Hope the investment pays off for both of us, President. His eyes wandered for a moment. You're having a good start to the term, for sure, besides the recent troubles. Glad that you've decided to promote the free market, which is the only thing that can get us out of this mess. It is good that we think alike on the matter. To a closer relationship, then. One that will bring Sordland out of a crippling recession. He grinned. The high-speed railway investment was a great decision. The business logistics will improve and boost the economy once finished. The intention of the administration is to boost the economy. The right intentions, for sure. We can be close allies. The group can help you get Sordland out of the recession, which will be the key problem to solve in your term and could even determine your re-election. Let's start with a gesture of goodwill. Soon, the investment project contract will be awarded to one of the three main contenders. He pulled a check from his pocket and slid it towards me on the table. My personal bank details were listed on it, with a deposit of 500,000 Sordland ready to be transferred. This was 6 months of a president's salary. If the contract were somehow awarded to Underhall Construction, they would not only work hard and deliver, but also do it on time. What do you think, Mr. Rain? Wouldn't that be good? He put his index finger on the check. There was a noise by the door. Livia Suno was standing there, holding a tray with a bottle and 2 glasses. I'm so sorry, Mr. Tusk. All I could find was 1942 Sévigné. I hope that's acceptable. She quickly put the tray on my desk and walked out. Tusk eyed her as she left. Remind me to visit your office more often. Now where were we? Do we have a deal? No. I will make my own decision. Walter sighed and pulled the check away, putting it in his pocket. Thank you for the visit nonetheless. It was good to share opinions. We will meet again in the future for sure. Oh, I almost forgot. Please say hello to Mr. Caranti for me. He smiled. Have a good evening, Mr. President. Walter stood up, grabbed his jacket, and made his way towards the door. He closed the door behind him. I gathered my things and prepared to finally head home. As I walked out, I noticed Livia still there, covering up her typewriter for the evening. If I may be so bold, Mr. President, did you accept his offer? Of course I didn't. How could you even ask me that? The other girls have told me all kinds of dealings that went on during the Alfonso administration. I wasn't sure if you were that kind of president. I most certainly am not. She and I took a moment to look out over the lights of the city before heading towards the elevators. All right. that's pretty much the end of turn 1 and beginning of turn 2. I think I'm going to leave this episode here. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave this episode here. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for all the support I've gotten over the last few weeks. It's been incredible to see, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. These videos will be this stream will be turned into their own separate videos, and I'm going to release those separately. So next week when I hopefully stream again, maybe even sooner, but most likely next week when I stream again, I'm going to turn each of these videos into its own YouTube segment after I edit them all down, which should be a lot of fun. I do not like editing very much, but it'll be worth it for this. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please please subscribe. It matters a lot to me. It really helps me out. Thank you again for all the support. It means the world to me. I hope you have a great rest of your night. I'm Mix Gray, and I'll see you all next time. Bye. Take care.